Welcome to another episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 228. Special Monday night episode of Pound for Pound Boxing Report. Why? Because basically this is the only day I'll have to have to do it. Busy work schedule the rest of the week. I am your host, Michael. Joining me this week, Gail from Communities Digital News, Danny from the Inscriber. What's going on, lady and gents?
Hey, we got a Monday show because we can.
And besides,
Yeah.
look, Monday night game, Patriots, Bills, who cares?
That's
Dancing with the Stars is over.
well
Dancing
put.
with the Stars is over, so Gail can focus fully on the show tonight.
Well, wait a minute. I'm on the West Coast, but I got my secret way of checking out what happens. So it's all good. It's all good.
Let's get things going. Recapping. This is going to be mainly a recap preview show. Let's see who's joining us right now. Oh, Scorsese. What's going on, Scorsese?
Oh, hey.
Long time no here, bro.
Right.
Yeah. I saw the show going live. I hit the link.
Yeah.
Good on you.
Yeah, long time no here. Let's get things going. I'll just give you. I'm going to split these fights up. I don't know what fights you saw, Scorsese. So just let me know. Going to recap what went down last week. Going to start in NYC. Main event of that card. Derevanchenko Jacobs. Jacobs winning by, I think it was by split decision. Yeah. 115, 112 in favor on two scorecards, 114, 113 on the third. I'll go to you, Scorsese, because I'm first because one, it's been a while since you've been on here. Two, I'm pretty sure you saw this fight.
Yeah.
Jacobs won. Good fight. But in watching this, I'm comparing how he would do with the other middleweights out there. With the Golovkins, with the Golovkins in a rematch, with Canelo, with Charlo. Jacobs can box. Jacob has good foot speed, good power. He hurt Derevanchenko a couple of times in this fight. But in watching this fight, his weakness, he doesn't have an inside game, in my opinion. And against particularly a Charlo, I think he would find problems in that fight. Your impressions on how on the fight with Derevanchenko and moving forward, your thoughts about Jacobs vis-a-vis the rest of the middleweight division. And I mention that because with all the champions, I believe, now signed with DAZN, looks like you could very well see a unification bout in some form or fashion in 2019.
Well, I'll start with Derevanchenko. For him to be such a short stature middleweight, don't got the quickest of feet, the quickest of hands. He found himself in the pocket where the shots was coming hard at him, and he stayed there. He kept going there, so I give him a lot of credit. And I thought he'd find it a little hard. I thought Danny would be able to keep the range a little bit better with the jab, but you had times where Sergiy was, using the up jab and cutting the distance and out jabbing Danny. Didn't like seeing that from Danny. I did like the body work he did, counter body work too, and Derevanchenko was trying to get his in there and break Danny to the body, but the shots Danny started landing to the body took his body attack away a bit. It seemed like he got a little uncomfortable throwing his own because what was hitting him was a little bit hard. I felt Danny won the fight clearly, but I shouldn't say clearly, but I felt he was winning the fight. Harold Letterman's scorecard was kind of getting to me. I was like, man, it just seemed like he was letting him run away with it, but at the same time, I felt like he's winning the fight, but Derevanchenko's in the fight. It's some rounds that could have been swung either way. What I also like, Danny was turning them, able to clip them with right hands, able to get angles on him in the center of the ring and use his length from there. He was doing some pretty good things. He looked much better compared to his last fight. And I don't know if that's because Selecki could keep the range with him with his length. And, he had probably a little faster foot speed than Derevanchenko as well. But that's where I look forward with Danny. Everybody else, you can't just lean away from a Charlo right hand, be out of position, and Derevanchenko's short enough where you could have just leaned up Saturday. With Charlo, you won't do that. With Golovkin's jab, you won't do that if he step in with the double jab. I'm not sure about with Canelo. He has a lot of different attributes that speed. He beats Canelo there, hand speed, foot speed, length, and all that. He has every physical tool on Canelo. But that's Canelo's question to answer. Will he walk into those punches like Derevanchenko and do more? But I'm interested in Danny a little more than I was after the Selecki fight. I could say that much. But I think if he doesn't knock a Charlo, if he doesn't knock a Charlo out in the first 3-4 rounds, it's gonna get hectic for him. If you don't get the knockout, and plus the respect from your power is not there. If you don't get that respect, it's going to be absolute hell, and he's going to get knocked out. That's how I see that fight. He definitely has a chance to win it, but the later it goes, I'm starting to favor Jamal Charlo. I always did favor him, but now I got to be honest with it. The knockout of Danny Jacobs, he's hurt the last two people. Well, he's dropped the last two people he's fought. He got some real power up there, and it's some winging shots. He can throw some wilder shots at times, but if they clip you, it's gonna be over, or potentially over. So I give him a lot of credit on his win. It's his first title. See where he go from there. I don't know about Andre fight or DAZN. He said he might not be signing there or something. I seen in some videos, but I didn't keep up with it well enough. But I would like him to go to Showtime and try to, they said they're doing all these pay-per-views next year. I'm not saying I want to pay $70 for Charlo Jacobs, but I'll give you $29.99. I would.
You mentioned Andrade. Let me not omit him from the discussion about the top middleweights as well as Billy Joe Saunders. Let me ask you a follow-up question before I move on to Gail and Daniel. You mentioned how you like what you saw from Jacobs' body work, particularly countering with body shots. You don't think that was due in part to the lack of experience from Derevanchenko? I mean, a more experienced fighter would let him get away with that.
Potentially. I think he regardless of who's in front of you, you want to be able to do that. He had his defense in the shell, and he had his chin exposed, but he was using head movement and hip movement, things like that, to keep his head free. And that's what the hands are there for. You could turn those body shots like that. You could catch body shots without trying from their defense. And if they open up with a jab and the pressure comes, that's a good punch for him. I think Derevanchenko with more experience probably right. He may have better defense and preparation for it, because it was times he got hit by it and he just shook his head like, damn, that happened last time. I didn't have the answer for it this time either. I saw a few times he's like, he just kind of like, shit. That's what he was telling himself. Like, damn it, that happened again. But yeah, if Danny sees that versus whoever, that's what he needs to go with. The effective shots.
Move on to Gail and Daniel, starting with Gail first. Your impressions of the fight?
A solid fight, a solid effort by both. They sparred 300 rounds together. So, while sparring is certainly different than a fight in the middle of the ring with the crowd around you, you're still looking at somebody who's pretty familiar to you. It was interesting to me that Jacobs decided the new look he was going to show Derevanchenko was to turn southpaw a couple of times. And it did work for him to a point. I'm not sure that it entirely threw Sergiy off. It was by far the body work that, in my opinion, won Jacob the fight. It nullified a lot of the power shots. Made Derevanchenko think a little more than he really needed to be thinking. Derevanchenko still has some of those amateur attributes. Still sometimes thinks volume alone is going to help him. And that's not always the case, as we know. So very interesting how close the scores were. In particular, when we had the split decision card with Julie Letterman giving it to Derevanchenko, I can only guess, looking at her card, it was strictly on activity rate, on punch volume. They weren't tremendously different, however. One would be up around, and then they'd switch places, and the next guy would be up around. I think if anything, Jacobs got the mental edge when he got that little flash knockdown in the first round, and then you just know when you're the guy that's gone down, from not especially a meaningful or hard knockdown, you're just thinking to yourself, damn, that didn't need to happen. Oh, I'm so pissed at myself. And you worry about it for a couple of rounds. If you don't shake that right off, erase it immediately, it's going to give you problems. And it did give him problems. He did think about it. It was more in the mistake category than anything. So Jacobs prevails. I wouldn't say it was the rocket ship to the moon excitement a lot of people hoped for, but solid enough for Jacobs. What happens to him now? That's going to be a very interesting question. He wants a unification fight. He should. Good for him. He knows what it's like to be in with somebody tougher than him. He stood across from Golovkin. I think he should stand across from a Canelo or a Charlo. I really don't see a whole lot of other worthy opportunities for him. If he wants to have one more sort of tune-up fight before that, okay. And I would like to see what Canelo looks like here coming up in December. And you can bet anything Jacob's going to have a nice close-up seat for that fight in his backyard in New York. Clock's ticking on him. I'm not sure how much longer he's going to carry on with his career. Jacobs has a lot of options outside the ring. He's a smart guy. He's got his act together. He's a very desirable sort of a color commentator, boxing community player, if you will. So it'll be interesting to see. Does he decide to throw it, go for broke, get that unification fight, see what he can do? He's either going to win or go out with a blaze of glory. I hope that's what he does. I hope he doesn't putter along, picking up a fight here and there and a paycheck here and there. We know he can sell seats. He's going to sell seats all day long in the New York area. Well, let's hope that he does something a little more bold.
I'll go to you, Daniel. I don't know if you had to step away. I don't know if you're back.
Yep.
If you are, your thoughts on the fight. And I mentioned to Lo that we could probably anticipate a unification bout, given that all the champions at least are signed with the zone. The question to you is, which of the champions do you think will fight each other in a possible unification bout in 2019?
It really depends. But first on the fight, I'll say that bluntly, that's a fight we can really tell that those guys have sparred a lot of rounds together because they knew their little ticks. They knew things that other fighters wouldn't be able to, that would take probably 3 or 4 rounds for them to understand.
Yeah, it was a little bit of a cautiousness in there between the two fighters. You can see them in there really, really thinking, sometimes overthinking, in my opinion.
Yep. And granted, I said that cost Derevanchenko a little bit in the first round because he let Jacobs land that clubbing left hand, and obviously Derevanchenko didn't completely go down, but his gloves and his knee did touch the canvas, and you can tell he was probably mentally kicking himself the rest of the fight. But each fight was a series of like little flashes here and there. Jacobs was starting to land combinations. Then in the middle rounds, Derevanchenko started to dig a little bit to the body while Jacobs trying to do the same. And in the late rounds, Derevanchenko came on a little bit, particularly the 12th round, where he was able to land the left hook a little bit more easily. He kind of needed it too, because if we see the scorecards, yeah, he needed a knockout to win. But that was, like I said, a very interesting fight. It let me know one thing when it came, particularly to Derevanchenko, like that he was at least worthy of being in that title picture. Sometimes that record, sometimes that tends to not favor people. Like if you're 15 and suddenly you get a title shot, may show that you may not have enough experience. But Derevanchenko showed that he's a worthy challenger. And Jacobs wins a title. And like you mentioned, right now all of the actual champions, the legitimate champions, are signed with DAZN. The issue is going to be, can Jermall force the issue with the WBC? If he can force the issue with the WBC, then that takes Canelo out of the picture for a little bit. Which then leaves Jacobs with Boo Boo. And that would be a hell of a fight. Like I said, that'll be a fight that'll sell itself out no matter if you put it in New York and Connecticut. It's a Northeastern fight. And Boo Boo's people will travel if it's in Brooklyn. Jacobs people will travel if it somehow winds up in Rhode Island or Connecticut. So that's probably the fight that's going to be leaning towards unification. I can see towards it's going to be Andrade versus Jacobs, while Canelo figures out their own thing, because obviously with what I've heard about this weekend, Canelo might be a little busy coming up soon.
Yeah. I still don't get that fight with Canelo, but that's another topic for another day. Let's move on to some undercard bouts on that HBO card in the Little Garden. Alberto Machado. Took a while for him to make his first defense, but now that he's finally defended the title, he's been very impressive. Took apart Ensa, what was it, September, I think it was. Early this summer, I'll say that. I forgot the month. But he's come back in the ring to fight Yuandale Evans. I wish Gus was here because Gus predicted a possible upset. Nope. Machado took apart this dude, bodied him in one round. Easy work for Machado. The question is, and I'll ask, and anybody who wants to respond, please do. Could Alberto Machado be the best at 130 pounds right now?
Yep. He sure as hell looked like it, didn't he?
I mean, he looks like a little beast. I mean, 5'10". Was he 5'10", 5'11", southpaw? Yep. Plenty of power. He seems to be improving skill wise. I mean,
and the confidence. He just moved right in and did his business.
Yep.
No mess, no fuss. Boom, boom. No, I don't get paid by the hour. Wow.
And I'm looking at
Sergiy would have been proud. Yeah. I'm telling you.
I'm looking at Tank Scorsese. I know there's a debate about who's the real WBA 130-pound champion.
There's no debate. There's no debate.
Yes, there really is no debate.
Does Tank really want any of that guy? Really?
Maybe he does. I mean, Tank's very good. But this dude is, man, when I think about 130 pounders, he might be the biggest one I ever seen in my life. and it's a good time for that. It's a good time. This dude look like he could go up there and be Jaime Munguia's weight in 3 years, man. That's what per division. Like any fighter, per division, he got the best size per division, in my opinion. That dude is huge. And he came across like a bully to just beat the shit out of him, man. I predicted that. I was telling Ness on his show, he was putting money on Yuandale Evans. I said, look, man, this dude is punch perfect, and that's what he is. He don't waste very much, and I think he give Tank a lot of problems. But the quickness of Tank could be his problem. I love to see that, but he is the real champion, no doubt about it.
This guy threw 30 power punches. Virtually his entire output for that one round was power punches. 30 power punches. He landed 22 of them. 3 of them were knockdown/knockout punches. Well, more than that if you count the fact that he achieved his knockdowns and the knockout with wonderful combinations of different punches. I mean, absolutely a terrific, varied arsenal. That was even more impressive. And truly, the kid barely cracked a sweat. It was, terrific performance. I thought it was interesting at the end of the fight who he called out. He called out Francisco Vargas.
He destroyed Vargas.
What?
He destroyed him.
He kicked that poor kid's ass.
You should have called out Berchelt.
Thank you. That's exactly who he should have called out. And that, my friends, is a fight that would be a classic Mexico-Puerto Rico matchup between two legit guys, very different ways of operating. That's a real test for both of them. And I think that thing would sell tremendously well. I'll tell you, everyone in Southern California would go to see that fight. I imagine a lot of people in New York would go to see that fight too.
Yeah, Daniel, he could have called out Farmer. I would have had no problem with that. He should have called out Berchelt. I wouldn't even mind him calling out Ito, WBO champion. But Vargas, he would body Vargas. Easy work.
How? Okay. I'm not gonna forget that's a Francisco Vargas who went to war with Salido and who was in the 2015 Fight of the Year.
Well, and whose belt I'm holding in my photo, by the way.
Yeah, and that's the whole thing. I'm not gonna forget the pedigree of Francisco Vargas, but that's a tough fight. And I said it when we talked about it last week.
Vargas ain't got it no more.
He's gonna have to show it, but like I said last week, Machado is going to come in there because he had a point to make. Thanks to the nice little alchemy of the WBA, he somehow got robbed of being the super champion, even though he is technically, by all means and means, the lineal champion. And the dude just beat the living daylights out of Yuandale Evans. Now, it was just the combination, the meanness of the punch, the fact that he knew he had to do something because obviously, like I mentioned last week, with Verdejo pretty much fading into obscurity, like there's a whole plethora of Puerto Rican fighters that want to claim that mantle saying, I'm the best Island Scott. Pedraza is trying to make a name for that. Like I said, obviously, the Machado now has a case for it. The Arroyo brothers have built up a case for it. So it's a very fun fight. And another thing when it comes to the Francisco Vargas thing, it's an easier fight to make since they're both at least co-promoted by Golden Boy. Berchelt is still technically with Zanfer, so that may be a tough fight to make. And Farmer, that'd be a good fight. I'd love to have that fight. Probably the fight that I want to see is probably Berchelt, just because Machado's having the most versatile skill set that he's starting to show in the division. But Berchelt, to me, may still be the best puncher in the division because he punches with both hands. But
so did this guy.
Yeah. But obviously the one fight I probably want to see more, I think, just because of the alchemy, is him and Tank. Just so he can just beat the living daylights out of Tank. and look at Gilberto Mendoza's face while doing it and say, yeah, who's the real champion? Who's the real champion while doing it?
If he comes over to Berchelt, if he's fighting in the States, he's co-promoted with Golden Boy too, isn't he? The Mior fight.
No, he's more. Golden Boy has a good relationship with Zanfer, but they're not co-promoted. It's not like a situation. It's kind of similar to what Jaime Munguia is. Munguia is not technically co-promoted by Golden Boy, but because Zanfer doesn't have that far reach into the States, they let Golden Boy handle that part without official the contract.
Okay. Well, they need to make that fight. I mean, Tank want to argue with Al Heyman, and Kevin wants to fight on the zone versus God knows who. I take Berchelt and Machado 2 or 3 times.
I'm with you, Low. That's the fight I want to see. Tank. If he's not arguing back and forth with Floyd about contract this and contract that, he's still beefing and e-thugging with Farmer on Twitter. They was at it today, as a matter of fact.
Mm.
And Farmer, I'm not mad at what he's doing. He's just coming on. He hasn't just come along the scene, but he's just become champion. He's probably going to. Eddie Hearn's probably going to. Eddie Hearn, Lou DiBella, I should say, probably going to make sure he's get at least a couple defenses in to get a couple coin in the belt. But I think they're looking for a fight with Tank more than looking for a fight with Machado. I'm going to really be honest about it. So putting that into the equation, Berchelt Machado, that's the fight that needs to be made at 130 pounds. Where it lands now that HBO's out of the picture, who knows? But that is the fight right now I want to see. I'm at 130 pounds. That has a chance to be really explosive. Final bout on the MSG card. Heather Hardy, Shelly Vencent, grudge match between the two ladies. They fought in 2016. Hardy won by, I want to say, majority decision. Correct me if I'm wrong. Gail fought a rematch. More definitive win by Hardy here. Bad blood between the ladies, no doubt. But like I just said, more conclusive in the victory by Hardy. She boxed starting in the second round. I liked the way she went to the body with the right hand in particular, and just kept moving on Vincent. Kept giving her angles, kept employing the jab throughout, and kind of coasted the victory. Anybody who wants to comment on it, please do.
Yeah, she did coast. It was a unanimous decision. The cards were 99-91 and 97-93 twice, which gives Hardy the WBO World Featherweight belt for winning that fight. Yeah, it was a more elegant version of the first fight. Hardy was in command, uh, clearly in charge of the ring, moved Shelly around so that she couldn't set up. And yeah, the body work was superb. She's a great athlete. Hardy fights in both MMA and boxing. Props to them both. They stood right in the center of the ring and went at it. They gave the crowd what they were looking for. They set it up all week with a lot of salty talk between them, and then Vincent showed up at the final news conference, and she had stenciled a fake beard on her face with mascara. But for some reason, a lot of people thought it was real. I thought it looked good. I didn't think it looked that good to people to take it was as if it was completely real. So that freaked a lot of people out. And that's exactly what she wanted. She was trolling away, and, good for her. Showed up in a crazy mask and the whole thing. But she's the older fighter. She's less agile, A for effort, but she wasn't going to overcome Hardy. But I've got to say, for both women, they both got backstories worth telling. Hardy started boxing because she had a young daughter and she was homeless, more or less. She was sleeping in her car and she needed to figure out a way to make money. And boxing helped her get off the streets. Great story. Vincent, her story is that she has struggled with depression in the past, very serious depression. And once again, boxing saved her. So both those women were on a premium network on television Saturday night because boxing took them away from some very dark times. And that's a win for both of them, no matter what the fight ended up being. Good for them.
Okay. Follow-up question here, Gail. One, we both mentioned how they didn't like each other coming in. One of the things that Vincent said was that Hardy is, in short, a bad representation of the sport, flirting with back and forth between MMA and boxing. Your thoughts on that? That's first question. Second question, on my boxing timeline on Twitter, well, let me set this up. When they was introducing Shelly Vincent, HBO made note to point her criminal background, even put it up on a graphic, right? I found on my timeline particularly women boxing fans, lady boxing fans, didn't like it one bit. And the argument is, why would they do that to her when they don't do it to men when they introduce them? Do you have a problem with that? With
Well,
what HBO did in that little graphic there?
I didn't love it, but it is the truth. The argument is whether they should be doing that with the male fighters, not whether they shouldn't have done it for Shelly. And she doesn't deny it. She doesn't deny it at all. In fact, she talks a lot about the fact that she straightened herself up thanks to boxing. I see that as a positive story, not necessarily a negative story. If that is behind her in her past and lessons learned, I don't mind it too much. Nobody's ever shirked away from pointing out that Bernard Hopkins was in prison. Everybody knows that Bernard Hopkins is a convicted felon. Let's just all remember that. It's a long time ago, way in the past. He's done more than enough to get long past that piece of himself and who he was then. And again, it's the story of how boxing can offer somebody a way out and a different life. So there are positives to be drawn from that. I'm not particularly wound around the axle over that. Now, as far as her criticizing Hardy, she's not in Hardy's shoes. Hardy is a mother with a child to feed. Hardy goes where she gets a paycheck. And women have fewer options for where they get that paycheck. And for a lot of them, especially if they have the appeal to the audience, and Hardy does, she's a nice looking girl. She's blonde. She's, good interview. If that's where the paychecks are being offered, God bless. She's working, like everybody else is working for a paycheck. Nothing wrong with that. Nobody says you've got to choose one or the other. And, once you've stepped into one world, you're not allowed in the other. That's just silly. But that's part of the trolling. That was part of the game.
Fellas, Low, Daniel, if you were able to see the fight, any thoughts?
It didn't. You can try to live up to the hype of what they saw in 2016, but the problem is, unfortunately, is the fact that Shelly Benson was the older fighter, and that's as in Hardy was able to fully master it. Some of the things that Vencent did in the second fight, in the first fight, she wasn't quite able to do as nicely as in the second fight, and it became systematic at a certain point. Now, I'm glad for Heather Hardy. I think this is her first actual title in the boxing ring.
It is. It is her first title. It's a big deal for her.
Uh-huh.
And she's got some possibilities ahead of her. So hopefully she'll get a few more big paychecks.
Yep. Now, the Vencent, the whole image thing is twofold. I think she's noticed a couple of things. Like she called it bad representation, obviously the whole MMA boxing thing, but I think she understands it. But she also made comments, I think, in the first fight, also in some of it, I think, in the lead up to this fight, that Vencent had the tougher road and Hardy had an easier road because she's cute, she's blonde and blue-eyed. And I think she actually pointed it out. I think one of her team, tried to point it out that either one of her team or somebody on Twitter pointed out the picture graphics that HBO used to show Vencent and to show Hardy. And then with Hardy, I think they had the picture with her, sure enough, with the glasses, and they had an old picture of Vencent. That's part of the dynamic, I think, that gripes her. But at the end of the day, the better fighter won. And it's going to be the fighter that has a lot of potential because featherweight, New York, if Katie Taylor's not on the immediate radar, there's Amanda Serrano. So there's a good, easy New York matchup going into it. And those two can fight whether it's in the boxing ring or in the octagon. So
let's move on to the DAZN card. It took place in, I want to say, in New Orleans. Progress and Flanagan was the main event. I want to skip that right now. I want to talk about Baranchyk and Yigit. Both of these fights were quarterfinals for the World Boxing Super Series Junior Welterweight Tournament. I'm going to you, Blow, first, and then you can follow up Daniel and Gail. Yigit's tough, but Baranchyk really beat him up. That left eye on Yigit, it reminded me of Lebedev and his left eye against Guillermo Jones some years back. I mean, it looked like a grapefruit over his eye. Uh, am I wrong to be really impressed by what I saw from Baranchyk? And I know Progress is the quote unquote #1 seed, but for Milo, the fight I really want to see at 140 is Baranchyk and Relic. I think that would be a fantastic fight.
Those two are my dark horses. I think Relics proved more than everybody in the tournament. He beat the two division champion in Bartholomew. Some people minds twice, and he definitely beat Ricky Burns and didn't get the decision. Um, I haven't seen his fight with Tronowski, and that's another former champion that he just beat.
What I'll do is, I think you're still in the YouTube thing. I'll send you a link to the fight, or better yet, you
Yeah.
can probably find it on Daily Motion.
All right. Well, yeah, I look. I definitely didn't get to see that when I was away, but I'm gonna catch back up on that one. But that damn Baranchek Saturday, not just Saturday, every day, every time you see him fight, he just motion and action and aggression, and it's quick. He's not slow on his feet. That's if this man was slower, he wouldn't be the problem he is. But he uses head movement. He changes levels. He cuts the distance quickly. He counters. He leads. He does it all. He goes to the body. Only fault I had in the fight was he couldn't get away from the straight. I think the guy was the left hand. He couldn't get away from the straight left hand based on the foot position he was in. He kind of didn't know just to pull back to his right when he had the inside foot, and he'd be okay and come back with some more counters. He would have been devastating had he made that man pull out his left hand, slipped it and counted. I mean, he was devastating already, but it would have been even worse, and he wouldn't have got hit as much. And another thing, it was just his activity dropped in spots, and he just overwhelmed him with power instead. I guess you could do it any way you want to do it, but I know he doesn't get tired. I don't know if he's trying to preserve himself or trying to show more skill or pull down the activity some. But I wanted to see it. That's one of my favorite dudes to watch fight. Him and Relic, those my dog horses. I don't know who fights who next. I don't know any of those things. I don't know the bracket, but it's looking like all of the top seeds are gonna be meeting. Well, should be meeting. So you know, Josh Kelly got to come through, and that's all the top seeds, and none of these dudes got an easy night.
Um, I'll go to you, Daniel, and then lastly, Gail. Your thought on Baranchyk's win, well, stoppage win. I think it was stopped in, I want to say 8-9. I can't remember exactly
Seven.
what
It
round.
was
Seven. Largely due to the swelling over the eye. Your thoughts on that? And I can't remember who does Baranchik fight next in the tournament.
I think Baranchyk actually fights. I think he does fight Relic next.
Okay.
I'm gonna have to look it up because I think it's him. I think it's him or the fighters next week. But
Okay.
like I said last week, you can't put the words boring and Ivan Baranchyk in the same sentence. And this fight more improved it because not only was Baranchyk able to land good combinations, good uppercuts on Yilich, but Yilich was also able to come back. Granted, he took a beating while doing it, but he was able to come back by finding gaps in the defense. Like he found ways to land a straight left hand for Baranchyk throughout the fight. Was able to land a couple of good, decent body shots, and ultimately That's ultimately one of the fight because that mouse under his eye was starting from the second round, and it started from a bad cut. If people didn't notice, like it was a pretty bad cut going into it, and then it just started swelling because Baranchyk was slanting that right hand with ease. I'm not going to take anything away from Nilic. That's a very tough bastard. He still, even after the fight stopped, he kept trying to plead with the ref to restart it. Like you see him like in the fight footage, like going him, come on, ref, let me fight.
Yeah, he even showed him I could see. He put up one. He closed the good eye and told him I could see you out of this eye.
Yep. But you know what? The doctors did what they're supposed to do. They save fighters from themselves. He saved Yilich from himself. He's a tough bastard, but at a certain point you can't do it. You can't do it like that eye was going to be swollen, and that's just the top part. What if it was under it? What if it's the orbital bone? We know how bad the orbital bone injuries are. So it's a good fight. Yilich's stock rises to me on this. So he's going to be a serviceable person, 140. And like Gail mentioned, it's going to be Baranchyk versus either Josh Taylor or Ryan Martin. And then maybe we'll see him in the finals, either Relic or Prograis.
Your thoughts, Gail?
The great thing about these tournaments is it does give a guy like Yigit, Anthony, can you dig it, Yigit? Now that's a name. It gives him some exposure. You know, who of us had Anthony Yigit? Did you know that was his nickname?
I did, but you reminded me.
Well, that's how you remember how to say his last name. Anthony, can you dig it, Yigit?
You dig it?
Yeah, that's right. You know what? And he was a pleasure, in interviews all week. He knew what he was up against. He was a great representative. I mean, if that's kind of boxers they're turning out in Scandinavia, bring us some more. Tough bastard. Good for him. He's still on Twitter today saying, come on, you guys, stop sending me the Quasimodo photos and the memes. It wasn't that bad. I'm fine. It's no big deal. I'm good. He's laughing about it. What a great attitude. But they exposed him to a worldwide audience. He jumps in the tournament. He's willing to risk that. That's what guys should do. Do we want to see him again? Hell yes, we want to see him again. That loss isn't going to kill his career. Far from it. Now he's a name they all know. That's why these tournaments are so valuable and why guys should jump at the chance. This is nothing but good for boxing. It was a good effort. But Baranchyk, he was going to win even without that injury. He had racked up enough points. There was just absolutely no way short of a flat-out stoppage. Yigit was going to win. It was absolutely the right thing to do to prevent any further damage. He's going to have to live with whatever the outcome of that is long, long after his boxing career is over. So it was the right decision, 100%. But a good effort and somebody I want to see again.
I want to give a shout out to 1224529, aka Lisa, as well as Fink, for listening live in the live YouTube chat as well. If you guys have any question, please feel free to ask us during the show. We answer them for you. Let's move on to some other fights here. I mentioned Baranchyk and Yigit. This was part of the World Boxing Super Series Junior Welterweight Tournament quarterfinal. The other quarterfinal, which was the main event for this particular design card, Regis Prograis and Terry Flanagan. I'll go to you, Daniel, on this one. In short, Prograis, too big, too strong, too active for the likes of Flanagan. I knew he would win coming in. Scored a knockdown in the 8th round. Prograis, he got the win and he won comfortably. But maybe it's just me. I was a little bit put off. Well, not put off, a little bit disappointed, I should say, that in spite of the win, Prograis largely fought at one speed, in my opinion. I felt there were opportunities for him after that knockdown at the end of the round during round 8, and Flanagan was hurt, no doubt. That round 9, 10, he could have really stepped on the gas and possibly stopped Flanagan, but he didn't. And for me, I was a little bit disappointed, like I said, and it made me question his ability to finish. Am I being a little bit, first of all, your comments on the fight, your analysis. Second, am I a little bit, am I guilty of being a little bit too critical of Prograis' performance?
Uh, First, if Gus, you're watching, I thoroughly enjoyed that beating Terry Flanagan got. It was beautiful.
And I was doing some live discussion with Gus during the night of the fight. He basically said he knew that you would be happy about the outcome.
Yes. Oh, that was a good beating.
Shout out to Gus.
Yeah, Prograis did good on that one. But yeah, it was just unfortunately, the thing with Terry Flanagan is good as he is technically, he just doesn't have the power to really stop guys from going after, especially when guys are bigger than him, stronger than him, and faster than him, which Prograis was. Now, as far as finishing into the fight, that was a little bit disappointing in a way, because he could have made a statement, like, because that division is pretty open right now thanks to this tournament. But I think he also realized what's next, and like Scorsese mentioned in the chat, he's facing Gary next. He's facing somebody that has an insane work rate for a 140 pounder. So maybe he's probably saving himself his energy because he knows he has one tough fight ahead of him. That being said, you do like to see fighters finish it out, close the show, particularly when in your home area like Prograis was. But I understood it. Like it became pretty evident he knew Flanagan had nothing for him. But you have to get the rounds in, you have to get the work in, and also you save yourself some of the energy for the tougher fight to come.
Okay, I want to also thank the Brotherhood, for joining us on the show. He has a question. Fink also had a question. His question is, where in the world is Keith Thurman? As I said a couple of weeks ago, Fink, he's on a milk carton somewhere. There's an Amber Alert out there for sometime Thurman. I don't know where he's at, and I don't know what he's doing. That's why, in my opinion, I think he's irrelevant. Um, since you got your mic unmuted, low, quick commentary here on Keith Thurman. What is up with this dude? Why is he not fighting?
Strategic plotting, maybe, man. Hey, I seen Keith go in there and go to war, man. I want to question him too. I ain't a huge fan. The dude got a lot of personality. I was about to say I'm not a huge fan of his personality. I'm talking about the books and the flute stuff. But as far as when he sit down with Sean Porter and he clowned him about beating him, about, yeah, you get your rematch when I say all this stuff, and then get in the ring with him, and he went to war with him. And Keith is not a dummy, man. I don't think he nowhere fat. I think he ready to strike whenever the iron hot for him, and he feel like he feels accomplished already. Already got his money more than likely. And when I seen him in the Israelite video, he didn't look out of shape. He didn't look like it was too far from fight weight. I think he's just sitting back like let them new names come in, and you'll see one time Thurman knock out one bum, two bum, then you be clamoring for me again. That's what he doing.
Please,
That's all.
all of that is true, and he still won't address the dude who's been calling him out for 2 years. He still won't address the dude that in his face told him I want to fight him. One Mr. Spence.
Yeah, that guy that guy rumors about his drinking going on right now. Keith may be just waiting on that to seep, waiting on some of that liquor to seep out his pores a little more. That maybe that's it. Keith
Um,
playing it strategic.
yeah, I'm not buying it. One question from the Brotherhood. His question is, I'll just read it out word for word. Am I the only one who thinks that Baranchyk should sign up for VADA Anybody who wants to respond to that, address this question, please.
What are you
Well,
implying, my friend?
well,
I'll
if he's
fight
if he's gonna be fighting, if he gets to the final, he's not gonna have a choice because it's either gonna be through the WBA or the WBC. They has to do through the
correct.
boxing program.
And you know what?
So
Neither one of us mentioned this. He won his first title last night, Saturday, just like Jacobs too. You know, we didn't mention that. We got caught up in the World Boxing Super Series thing, but he won the vacant IBF belt, and that's really the only belt besides the WBA in the thing. He brought it, you know, the unification now. You know, he brings the unification to the table now. So, congratulations to him on that.
Two questions from Lisa, aka 1224529. I'll ask this question to you, Gail. Her first question is, well, no, this is for everybody since she asked for a general question here. Her question is, who do you guys think will be the last two standing in a 140-pound tournament? That's the first question from her. It's not really a question, it's more of a comment in regards to Thurman. Her personal opinion is that Keith is either physically not up for it or playing chess. Yeah, that sounds about right. But regarding her specific question to everybody here, last two fighters standing when it comes to 140-pound tournament, who do you think it will be?
Oh, the two winners from Saturday, no question. Baranchyk and Prograis are on a collision course, especially based on the performances we saw. I don't think Taylor or Martin are going to really challenge him. And I just can't see Relic beat Prograis. Relic had a really lackluster fight against Troyanovsky. So I think Prograis gets that easy. You know, Prograis put it on cruise control Saturday. You know, to me, you know, that just shows how confident he is that he could win that fight, you know, fairly easily and not have to work that hard at it. You know, that was an opportunity for him to put in rounds, do the work, do the rounds, work his skills, you know, relax, and you know, fully engage in that fight. And that is exactly the kind of career builder fight a guy at this, you know, stage of his career should be putting in if he can. That's an extremely valuable fight to him. So, you know, he didn't get one of his big flashy early round knockouts, but you know, that just shows how in control he is. You know, it reminds me of what we've seen in the past on occasion from Terrence Crawford, who can do the same thing. Well, frankly, Earl Spence, who can do the same thing. You know, fight completely in control, yet look like they're out for that, you know, Sunday walk in the park. It's just that easy.
My only pushback, Gail, was I'm thinking long term in terms of Prograis specifically, not just in terms of how he fights in the ring. I'm hearing a little bit of echo here, so please mute your mics, folks. It may be on your end, Gail. Maybe mute your mic, right? Thank you. I'm thinking long term in terms of Prograis, not in terms of how he fights not only in terms of how he fights in the ring. To me, he has personality. He's good behind the mic. He has that kind of it thing going on, and star potential. And especially when you put in the backstory of the troubles he's went through when it comes to Hurricane Katrina, the Houston hurricane took everything away from him. So there's something there. When I look at this Flanagan fight, if he would have knocked him out, I think it would have added on to that. The fact that he didn't, it was like, okay, he won the fight, but something missing. Your thoughts? It was incomplete for me.
That's the whole aspect of it. Like I agree with Gail. Like he pretty much once he knew Flanagan had nothing for him, he pretty much put it in cruise control to get the rounds.
For me, I like to see guys when you're in a position like that, finish him off, make a real statement.
No, I understand that, and that's a good thing to have. But he is also in a weird position where he has to really, really build his thing because he's seeing at least into the future past the World Boxing Super Series. Because we know the fight that he actually wants.
Ramirez.
He wants Ramirez. So that's a fight that he's going to try to preserve himself for because he knows he has to. Because that's not going to be an easy fight. Ultimately, though, as far as like the main question is who are the last two people standing, yeah, I think it's going to be Baranchyk and Prograis because while Relic has a very, very, very good work rate, he does have, unfortunately, a knack to not really finish the way he's supposed to. And Prograis, that may be the chance for him to show, no, I need to finish. And obviously that gives him a world title if he wins, and it gets a unification for it. So it's going to be a hell of a fight going into him and Baranchyk because it'll be two guys who have personality and two guys who are in two different skill set levels. Baranchyk is still technically learning, even though he just won a belt. He's still technically learning in many ways how to still be a pro because even with Village fight, there were gaps in his defense, gaps that Prograis can't expose.
Your thoughts about my view of Prograis, Gail? Am I being a little bit too harsh on him?
I think so. This was the best thing for his development to get this kind of good, solid 12 rounds in. The knockouts are great. And you're right. He's a crowd pleaser. He's got star quality. He loves the boxing media. He loves to talk just second to loving the box. I mean, that guy, he's extremely engaging and he does have a great backstory. But sometimes you do need a fight like this, and better he do it in an early round of this tournament than against an opponent down the road or in the final. I mean, if he was going to do it, this is the time to do it and the right opponent to do it with. Because, sorry, Gus, this guy just was no danger to Prograis, none. So, a smart thing to do for him to put in a performance like this. He needs to know what it feels like to go 12 rounds. And credit to Flanagan, he never stopped making an effort. He never stopped engaging at any point. So it's a kind of guy that will make Prograis go through the rounds and do the work. And that is important. Guys need fights like that because when it does get really rough and he can't get somebody out of there, he needs to know what it feels like, and he needs to know that he doesn't have to panic, that he can get to the final bell and still win at this level. And the day he does face a Ramirez, where it's do or die, critically important, a real threat, he needs that experience he had Saturday under his belt. He really does.
Wrap this discussion up, Lo, and within that, mention publicly what you were saying probably about Prograis, particularly in a potential bout with Relic.
I agree with Gus because fighting Relic, you've seen a guy that 24 rounds. What is it? 36 rounds the last three fights. 3 championship fights in a row. That is way more experience than what Prograis can even dream about right now. But as far as fun of the fight, I couldn't get into it for him. That was a lesson for him. It was other fights on for me. But going into the Prograis fight, what we seen with Bartholomew, you got to work that body. I don't know if he showed the same things in there with Trudnovsky. You got to work that body of Relic. You got to counter him and make him think about what he's doing. If you sit back and you pull this what you did with Flanagan and take what you can get and don't push the guy back, whatever it may be, just little things. That's gonna tell Relic green light, green light, green light. And if you don't have an output, I hate to say that Prograis might look like an Adrian Broner, like because I say that because he over exaggerates his defense at times, and I don't know if he's getting into that, like you said, Gail, just for the rounds, just to be in there putting in the work, or is that who he's becoming? Because that's two fights in a row for me where I felt like, man, this, he's he's worried more about slipping the punch largely in a large way without countering than just saying, okay, I got enough and I'm sharp with my counter. So I don't know if this is who he's becoming or if it's the rounds, but the key thing, you got to work Relic's body. You got to keep his work rate down. Once he get going, he ain't gonna stop. So I think this is a hard fight for him, and I much rather see this than the Flanagan fight, no doubt about it.
Because the show is happening so early in the week, is being recorded here live, October 29th. No real news popped up. At least I didn't see it. But during the pre-show discussion offline, Daniel, you was mentioning something in line possibly for Gennady Golovkin down the road. Talk about that here right now, please.
Okay, well, according to Tom Loeffler, it's looking like the next fight for Golovkin is going to be something that he's done before in copying Canelo in some way, moving up a little bit to super middleweight to challenge the recent winner of the World Boxing Super Series tournament, Callum Smith.
Did you say copy of Canelo?
I had to be blunt. Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, I'm just gonna say he can never grow that damn beard. Never. Can never copy that one. Try as you may.
Yeah, but it's pretty telling for things in a way where, unfortunately, that kind of shows where Golovkin is at 160 in a little bit. And I talked about this a little last week when it came to the options that he really had. He turned down the mandatory fight with Jamal. Granted, Abel Sanchez kind of laid the groundwork for that months ago. He avoided that, and now William Monroe is going to be the one doing it. And everything else at 160 doesn't look too promising because at this point we know what Triple G's about. Triple G needs to make money.
Yeah.
He has to recoup all that he feels that he lost from all those years in Germany when he got dicked over for Felix Sturm fight. And unfortunately, there weren't that many options. Like that Murata fight blew up in his face, unfortunately. And that was the only real money option for Golovkin at middleweight, with Billy Joe no longer having the belt, other than Canelo. Other than going after a third fight with Canelo. And probably seeing that Canelo's now signed with his own. He's going to face Rocky Fielding. He'll probably beat Rocky Fielding.
Probably.
I'll save that for another time, but now Triple G saying, okay, I'll fight the winner of this tournament. A guy in Callum Smith, who, by the way, ain't no small super middleweight.
He looks like a full-blown light heavyweight who happens to fight at 168.
Yeah. I said it, in 2 years, that kid could probably be a cruiserweight. 2 or 3 years, he's probably a cruiserweight. But it's pretty telling that that's the position they're going to, because number one, it pretty much just solidifies that Golovkin is going to go to the zone. Like we mentioned, it's almost inevitable at this point. If you're a middleweight, you have to be on the zone. And ultimately, he's still chasing Canelo. He's still chasing the third fight. Because he beats, if he does good against Callum or winds up beating Callum and Canelo beats Fielding, suddenly Golovkin can say, I have the belt that you claim to have. Fight me now at super middleweight.
Thoughts on that bit of news from Daniel, Lowe, Gail. Fink mentioned, no, not Fink. Who was it? Yeah, it was Fink. Fink mentioned that Smith would be no soft touch for Triple G. I agree.
Yep.
Um, so if he were to fight Callum Smith, quick thoughts on that.
Might be beat into retirement. That's the first thought that comes to mind. You want to go up after two losses, basically. You never wanted to do this. You get two losses in a row.
Well, a loss and a
It's
draw to be technical about it.
yeah. Okay. It's just sort of like Hopkins. You're moving up after the L's for whatever reason. And then you're moving up. I mean, Hopkins wasn't moving up to fight who should be the top guy at 68 right now. But Hopkins was bringing up middleweights in a way. But I don't. I just kind of see him getting beat into retirement. Like potentially, really, if this dude keeps the distance. Callum Smith keeps the distance. Throws that right hand with some heat. Introduces Golovkin to a new ball game at a later age again. My first thoughts is retirement. Like, yeah. And I agree with Daniel. He has done a lot of copying of Canelo Alvarez, the UK the UK welterweight situation thing going on. It's some more things. I had made a comment on Boxing Scene about that before, where he was flat out just everything Canelo was doing. There was similarities with Triple G. Um, but yeah, man, like I said, that he could never grow that beard though, never. Other than that, my first thought is he might get beaten to retirement. Might be really one of the first times you say, man, Triple G's challenging himself. That's a real challenge. That's respect for what he's doing. But I think it's a little bit too late.
Your thoughts about this, Gail, before we move on to the previews.
Well, Golovkin's options are limited in a lot of ways. And through no fault of his own, which has kind of been, story of his career. When he first burst on the scene, a little more younger, a little more able to deliver those knockouts, guys avoided him. Hard to blame him, but he couldn't bring in the kind of money that made it the risk, worth the reward, because the reward wasn't big enough for the risk. Now he's at the position of his last remaining options, are falling off one by one. Saunders, what a mess. What a hot mess. And Murata, got beat up. Why the hell isn't Golovkin
Beat
going
up
after
and exposed.
God, he just, in a big way. And, why in the world then isn't Golovkin going after Rob Brandt? Why isn't why aren't Golovkin and Brandt going after a fight? Loeffler can do business with Bob Arum. It's not a problem. They got the ESPN platform if that's the direction he wants to go. Or maybe he does it as a one-off. Arum and Top Rank seem awfully damn flexible these days. They're willing to play with everybody. And it shows. They're getting some great fights made. They're busy. They're making ESPN happy. They're putting butts in the seats. It's all good. Rob Brandt's going to have to be looking for some options. And, my guess is that somebody like Brandt might be much more willing to fight a guy like Golovkin than he would be Charlo. I'd love to see that fight. I don't know, maybe Brandt doesn't think he's ready. I think he's ready. I think that's a damn fun fight.
Sadly, though, Gail, I think the money is in a Murata rematch for Brandt in Japan.
Yes. Oh, you know what? And the truth is, Golovkin could still make a fight with Murata in Japan, and they both get paid a lot of money. And sometimes it's not a bad idea for two guys coming off a loss. One of them's going to get a win no matter what. So I think that's still in play. Honestly, we might be seeing Loeffler, verbalizing other options, which he does do. And I'm not to say he's lying about it, but I'm not sure that's the leading candidate. So I think there may be some more things in play. The problem is that both Murata and Golovkin took a little too much heat in their fights to be ready for a big New Year's Eve payday fight, which I think if that was in play, that you'd see that for sure. But that's coming awfully soon.
It was supposed to be in play.
Yeah.
It
Well,
was supposed to be.
oh, tell me about it. Tell me about it. I was ringside for Murata's fight, and we were sitting among a media section that was absolutely dominated by Japanese media, both from Japan and Japanese reporters who are based in the United States. And you're starting to see some very troubled looks on the faces there. And a lot of us are looking around at each other and saying, are you seeing, what's your scorecard? Brant's looking pretty good here, don't you think? What have you got on your scorecard? You were starting to ask everybody alongside, what have you got over there? Checking each other's homework. And we all started to nod that, yeah, I've got him up. Do you have him up? Yeah, I have him up too. And then there we have it. In fact, the judges had Brant winning far more of a dominant fight on the scorecards than anyone in the media section did. We all thought he might have won, but A, it's Vegas, and two, you're just not sure sometimes what the judges are seeing.
And three,
but
they was looking towards a Murata Triple G fight down the road.
Absolutely, they know where it's going. But you know what? For all the, and this is a good moment to mention this, even though it's a fight, of a couple of weeks ago. We talk so much shit, rightfully so, about some of the horrible decisions in Las Vegas that, we just have those shake my head moments. This one, by God, they got it right. They gave it to the right guy. They didn't grease the skids. From your Murata had won, everyone would have shrugged and said, well, what do you expect? And they didn't do it. It was the right card, went to the right guy for the right reasons. Once in a while, that blind squirrel finds the nut, and they did.
Let's go to the previews here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to split these fights between you guys. Going to go to you, Daniel, regarding this first fight I want to talk about. Miguel Berchelt, WBC champion. We talked about him while discussing Machado as a future opponent for Machado. He's returning to the ring this coming weekend to fight Mickey Roman, Berchelt, WBC champion, defending his title against Roman. Your thoughts on that fight?
That's a good fight. Like, in many ways, Roman kind of took the mantle from Orlando Salido as that tough Mexican fighter that does have some good losses in his record, but you're gonna pay to see every time. And that's gonna be his mantle from now on, because Salido is fully dedicated to being a politician from the looks of it. So this is going to be a very interesting fight. Obviously, Mickey knows how to get in there, fight 30 inside. And like I mentioned when we talked about Berchelt has power in both hands. That's why I said, like, even though Machado may be starting to become most versatile fighter in 130, I still say Berchelt probably is the biggest puncher in that division, because he does have power in both hands and he knows how to effectively land it. Now, both of them, I think, know that whoever is going to win this fight is likely going to trying to get somebody like a Francisco Vargas, like a Machado, or maybe, like I said, if Oscar goads enough people, maybe get Tank. So they know they have a lot. And it's going to be in a very, very friendly crowd. UTEP, El Paso, by the border. So that crowd is going to be live.
Roman, by the way, is the number one contender for Berchelt's belt. The fight is going to happen in, I want to say, El Paso on ESPN Plus. So you can check it out there. Going to go to you, Lo, on the second fight here. The Zone card in Glasgow, Scotland. The third quarterfinal, I believe, in the World Boxing Super Series Junior Welterweight Tournament. Josh Taylor, Ryan Martin. I'm a fan of Taylor. I watched his fight against the last opponent he beat, who lost the unification bout with Crawford. Help me out, guys.
Postal? You mean Postal?
Postal, yeah, Postal. Beat Postal. Close fight. I think the knockdowns were the difference. It was a learning experience for Taylor Lowe. He's fighting Ryan Martin. I'm looking at this. I'm watching Martin. He's a decent fighter, but for me, I just think that Taylor is going to learn from that Postal bout. Going to be better as a result, and because of that, I think he's going to be too much for Martin. Your thoughts? You there, Lo? I don't think Scorsese is there, so I'll take the question to bring the question to you, Gail. Your thoughts?
Martin is a real sharp young talent, but he is a bit untested. He's never faced anybody quite at the level of Taylor. Taylor will give him, all he can handle. Martin, Martin runs very hot and cold in his performances. I've watched him several times ringside now, and he's had some, wow, who's that kid spectacular, no kidding, oh my God, performances. And then he's had others where, he wins, but he just kind of grinds along. He has a good work ethic. He trains hard. He stays very active, which is really important for a fighter at his level. And maybe he doesn't win this fight. I think that it's unlikely. I think Taylor will take it. I think it's not really going to matter because no matter who wins, Baranchyk is going to wipe the floor with either one of them. But having said that, I think it's going to be Taylor, but it's certainly not going to hurt Martin to have this kind of experience. A lot like Anthony Yigit. These kind of losses teach a young guy a lot, and it gives him a very solid idea of what they need to work on. And sometimes they have a hard time figuring out what that is and where they should be putting their time in the gym. So I'm looking forward to a good fight and positive outcomes for both these guys.
Are you back, Scorsese? I don't think he's back, so I'll go to you, Daniel. Talk about this undercard bout in Glasgow. Excuse me. Ryan Burnett fighting Nonito Donaire, final quarterfinal of the World Boxing Super Series. Daniel, look, Donaire at his prime was really, really good, really, really explosive. The problem with Donaire, he's not in his prime. He's far from it. There's a big part of me that really wants for him to beat Burnett because I'm just not impressed by Burnett. But I think Burnett, he has, for lack of a better word, a difficult, kind of ugly style. I think because he's younger, because he's fresher, I think he's going to maul, in a sense. He's going to maul his way. He's going to be awkward enough where Donaire is not going to be able to get to him. If Donaire can get to him, he has a chance to knock him out because Donaire has to punch still, even though he's in his mid-30s. But I just think the youth, the activity of Burnett will be just a little bit too much for the vet, Nonito Donaire.
It's not so much us. It's not just the youth. It's the fact that we haven't seen Nonito Donaire at bantamweight in how long?
Yeah, that's true.
I'm like that. That's a significant drop in weight for a guy in his mid-30s. Particularly like when he was trying to, when at a point he was actually going to try to fight at lightweight. So that's almost 20 pounds that he had to lose to make this tournament. And when you have to do that, when you've been doing your career as of late at featherweight or super lightweight, and on top of that, just the wars that Nonito Donaire went through, even when they were dominant ones. Like, yeah, those fights with Darchinian, they were a long time ago, but we don't know how those can easily come back and try to haunt you later on. And that's the situation you're facing in. As particularly when we have to remember, bantamweight is the division that Donaire technically got ruined with Rigondeaux. So I don't know how much would that be in his head. going into like the last time I was in real bantamweight, I was thoroughly embarrassed. For nostalgia's sake, I do want Donaire to win, but I don't think he will. I think Burnett will probably pull it out, like because like mainly the youth and just the fact that he isn't as as war worn as Donaire is, and quite frankly, it's also because we've been promised Burnett versus Tete for a year, and it's about time we get it.
That's true. That's true. Final bout here, and and just to give my quick prediction, I think Berchelt will beat Roman in a very very good fight. I think it will go the distance. I think Taylor will beat Martin. That will go the distance as well. And um, I wouldn't be surprised if Burnett stops Donaire as on because of cuts or swollen eyes or whatever. Just too tough for Donaire at this age. Like, and as you said, Daniel, coming back down to 18 when he's been fighting at 26 and 22. Just too tall of an order for him. Final card I want to talk about here going to be happening in New York on Facebook Watch. Sullivan Barrera fighting Shawnee Monaghan. I'm sorry, y'all. And anybody who wants to chime in, please do. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm not impressed with Monaghan. Never been impressed with Monaghan. If he gives Barrera any trouble at all, I would be highly disappointed in Sullivan Barrera here. Your thoughts?
Jesus Christ, Shawnee Monahan. I still can't believe he's still around.
Exactly.
I still can't believe he's still around, but that pretty much unfortunately tells you how far down the ladder Sullivan Barrera fell in the light heavyweight picture. That changed a little bit, like I said, with Stevenson still there. You still have now you have Eddie Alvarez as a champion. You have Viturbiev there. So it's a new changing landscape. I didn't even forget to mention Bibble, but like I kind of feel bad for Sullivan Barrera in a way because that's how far it went down for him. He had reasonable fights. He had really decent fights, but I think once it got to the top, it just wasn't able to really pull the trigger. And like I said, that really does feel bad. And yeah, it'll be there. It'll be in Atlantic City. Like I said, the Gale is probably doing PR work for it right now. But
it would be something like that, yeah.
yeah, but oh man, yeah, I just feel bad for Sullivan. I just really do.
Your thoughts, Gail?
Well, both guys in a media conference call last week acknowledged, hey, the fight's being called high stakes, and the reason is
High stakes.
High stakes for them, and that's the truth because the winner, still has a shred of a chance of getting, maybe a title challenge. The loser, he's a journeyman from here on out, if that. And, he's going to be relegated to, the bottom rungs. So they know, it's do or die. They got to win. There's going to be very different outcomes, two different paths going in opposite directions after that fight is over. So they get it. And I think that might actually produce an entertaining fight to watch. Is it going to be at the highest levels, especially of a very competitive division? Be nice if it did, but nobody's expecting that in the slightest. But it'll be a positive in one sense for Monaghan. He still does have a big following in Ireland. And, this is going to be yet another outing for the Golden Boy Fight Night Facebook Watch platform. They are stepping in. They produce the fights. They'll partner with the promoter who's actually got the card organized. And in this case, it's a Golden Boy with Main Events co-promotion to do the broadcast. And hey, it's that everyone's favorite 4-letter word. It is free. Free. And for the folks local, there are some really nice local fighters on the card. Local guys that bring their fans, and it's very accessible to them. And we're also going to get to see Dennis Douglin, who beat Vaughn Alexander, who main events promptly turned around and signed. And that'll be a fun fight to look at too. But it's really a warm-up for the light heavyweight fight we're going to see Thanksgiving weekend with Dimitri Bivol.
Crossroads fight, I would concede. But I can also make an argument that these two fighters are already journeymen at this point. I think we're going to start to shut down the show from here. Lowe, he had to step off, so I'll give his information if you want to follow boxing. If you want to talk boxing with him, excuse me, you can check him out on YouTube G Plus at Low Place #MLPF. Once again, Low Place #MLPF. If you want to talk the sweet science with him on YouTube and G Plus, go to Miguel. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk Dancing with the Stars, Game of Thrones, small business advice, let the folks know where they can find you.
Folks can find me and my regular column at Communities Digital News, which is COM, C-O-M-M, Digi, G-I-G-I News, comdiginews.com. There is one more fight I want to mention from this past weekend. If you were watching the DAZN fight and you watched that undercard, there is a young super lightweight fighter prospect out of Puerto Rico who you need to all keep your eyes on. That kid was put on a first round knockout that was just one of those, you got to stand up out of your chair and say, damn.
Name, please, for those who don't know who you're talking about.
I did not see that. So this kid's name is, and I want to get his first name right, so I'm scrolling to pull his name here. His first name is, and he's 11-0 now, Subriel. That's why I wanted to get it right. Subriel Matias. Subriel Matias. He is a tall, 5'10", 26-year-old, super lightweight. He's a southpaw. And in his last fight, he crushed admittedly, way past his prime, aging Breedis Prescott. But he absolutely wiped the floor with him in Puerto Rico 2 months ago in 4 rounds in Puerto Rico. So that gave him his shot for his first fight outside of Puerto Rico. In fact, actually, he's had a few fights in the Dominican Republic. So his first fight in the United States was on this undercard. Now, he faced a guy whose record is, wait for it, 62-8-3. Fernando Salcedo of Argentina, who's 10 years older than him, but still, he absolutely crushed this poor man. So let's hope that Mr. Salcedo is done with his career. But Matias looks like he's possibly, an exciting new talent coming out of Puerto Rico. And once fans in the United States, beyond the island itself, start seeing him, they're going to grab onto him and they're going to like what they see. I predict now you're going to hear this kid's name a lot. He's currently 11-0, and I believe he's got 10 out of 11 knockouts, which is pretty impressive.
Okay, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot for mentioning that guy's name. That name, Matias. What's his first name again? How you pronounce it?
It is Subriel. It's Subriel Matias. Matias is how.
So Subriel Matias. Keep an eye out for him, folks.
Yeah,
Subriel Matias. Yep.
Watch that kid. I think he's the goods. I really do.
How does it compare to one Mr. Garcia, who Golden Boys promoted, who, by the way, folks, already ranked fourth by the BC, by the BO, and I think I want to say the BA.
Huh, of course he is.
Well, wait a minute. Yeah, you said he's super lightweight, right?
He's super lightweight, yeah.
So why are we comparing him to him? They're two divisions apart.
Still, young prospects at similar stages in their careers, similar number of fights.
Yeah.
Well,
and about the same height.
Yeah.
If not the same weight class right now. You know what? This kid Matthias, one of the other things I liked about him, he's all business. He is all business in the ring. He is a search and destroy kind of guy. He doesn't fool around. He goes right at somebody. You know, there are no feeling out rounds with him at all. And he's one of those guys, you know, there are a lot of guys this age with these skills who have power, but when a guy is a really accurate puncher with power, they are dangerous. And that's Matthias. You know, he's one of those one shot, one kill kind of guys. So when you're a super lightweight and can do that, it's very impressive.
Okay. I'll go to you, Daniel. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, especially when it comes to the Miami Heat, let the folks know where they can find you.
Yes, you can find me on Twitter at Rockets99. You can find me, I think it's going to be tomorrow, Thursday, a show with the good folks at 4 Boxing News. We're actually going to talk about this fight, and I'm like, it's not letting up, folks. It's not letting up in the least. And we do have to mention like one other fight. We probably didn't mention it just because, Pulev beat Hughie, and we're just not back in the picture with waiting on Pulev to fight Joshua. So that's probably what's going to be on April 13th.
I want to thank Fink. I want to thank the Brotherhood. I want to thank 1224529 for joining us, for listening on the live show. Also their questions and their commentary in the chat. If you like what you've heard this evening, please hit that like button on Facebook. I'm now on Facebook, on YouTube. Please hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Please subscribe to us on iTunes as well as SoundCloud. And we'd love to hear your commentary. We'd love for you to leave a comment or review in iTunes. Good, bad, indifferent, I don't care. A good 5-star iTunes review rating, I'll read it on the show. For those who want to talk boxing, for those who want to talk music, for those who want to talk fitness with yours truly, you know what it is on Twitter, Brother JR at Brother JR76. As I said to begin the show, if you want to find out all things regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page, place to go to, p4pboxingreport.wordpress.com. Maybe I didn't say that at the beginning of the show. Anyways, been a kind of a long show. Check the right of the blog page. Links to where to find us all over social media platforms, Twitter, Facebook, you know the deal. Also, if you check the right of the blog page, the top right of the blog page, you can find links to where to find us on any available platforms that carry podcasts minus Spotify. On the next episode of Pound for Pound Box Report, what we'll do is a recap of Berchelt, Mickey Roman, recap of Josh Taylor, Ryan Martin, recap of Burnett, Donaire, Sullivan, Barrera, Shawnee Monaghan, and we will do a preview of highly anticipated cruiserweight showdown happening in Manchester, England. Alexander Usyk fighting Tony Bellew. Also do a preview of Anthony Crawler. He's going to be fighting on that undercard. As well, Yorkis Gamboa, he's making his return to the ring. But the main focus will be Usyk, Bellew, one of the best fights of the year. One of the fights I'm really looking forward to close out the year. Great way to turn out the year with the holidays coming up. I'm really amped about this fight. Looking forward to what is going to be happening on the Zone. I am going to watch. I'm going to do my darndest to watch it live. I'm really, really looking forward to that fight. I'm excited about that fight. Crawler, by the way, is fighting Dal Jordan on the undercard. We'll probably do a preview of that as well. So yeah, the main focus on the next episode, we'll do a recap of this weekend's fight and a big, extensive preview of Usyk Bellew. Again, looking forward to that fight. So again, want to thank everybody in the chat, Lisa, the Brotherhood, Fink, for Scorsese, who's joined us on the show. Scorsese, aka Low Place, love him or hate him, you're gonna listen to him. You're gonna pay attention to him, regardless. Daniel from the Inscriber, Gail from Communities Digital News. I'm your host, Michael. Episode 228, Pound for Pound Boxing in the books. We will see you guys next time. Everyone, have a good evening. Good night.